Westwood One presents America at Night. Here's your host, McGraw Milhaven.
Hey, we're headed for another week. Thanks for joining us. America at Night. Text line is up and running. Text your comments to 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-2-McGraw, or 1-844-262-4729. Of course, open phones in hour number 3, just as always. We got a show for you tonight. Oh, do we have a show for you tonight? In this first hour, we're going to talk to the former Montana governor and former RNC chairman and former head of the Bush-Cheney election. Marc Racicot is going to be joining us in just a couple of minutes. He wrote an op-ed piece in The Hill about why America needs to support NATO in its hour of need, which is now, and talk about Greenland and NATO, as well as everything else going on with the Republican Party right now. So Marc Racicot, straight ahead. In hour number 2, we are going to talk to a true life crime. There was a story about a kid who was dressing up as a zombie hunter. It turned out the kid was a real sociopath and ended up doing some serious damage. And so we're going to get into that, chasing down the zombie hunter with Troy Hillman, the author of that true life crime. And then a little bit later on in hour number 2, we are going to check in with Chase Colburn. Now, I know the Super Bowl was yesterday, and I know everyone's sort of maybe even Super Bowled out, but wait till you hear 14-year-old sportscaster Chase Colburn break down this year's Super Bowl. We have a chance to talk with him, and can't wait to talk to Chase Colburn, 14-year-old sports reporter. So we'll get into all that coming up in hour number 2. But I want to start off tonight, before we go to Marc Racicot, I wanted to start off tonight with a story from the Super Bowl, which hasn't gotten a lot of attention. Everybody was screaming and yelling about Bad Bunny, which, I don't quite get it. MAGA's melting down. They're in a war over whether or not it was good or bad. I don't get it. I didn't understand a word Bad Bunny sang, but then again, I don't really understand when English performers sing. I don't understand those words either, but be that as it may. You didn't hear this story, but it was such a great story. I wanted to start off this week with it because it just, again, it goes to show you that hate sells, anger sells, vitriol sells, but the good stories sort of get lost in the melee of all this. So the Seattle Seahawks win the Super Bowl, right? And their coach, Mike Macdonald, a great story in and of itself, played high school football, never played after high school, but became a student assistant coach at Georgia and went on to, I think, become an assistant coach or a volunteer coach with the Baltimore Ravens, and then went on for a couple of other spots, then went to Michigan, and then got the head coaching job at the Seattle Seahawks, one of the youngest coaches in the league and one of the youngest coaches ever to win a Super Bowl. It's a great story. But on the other side was, did you see, because NBC was hosting the Olympics as well as the Super Bowl, Mike Tirico, right, normally the lead anchor for the Olympics, was busy with the Super Bowl, and then you had Mary Carrillo with the Olympics, and you had Terry Gannon. You had all these people sort of, I don't want to say out of place, but they had to cover both locations. And it just so happened that the NBC sportscaster Maria Taylor was hosting the pregame festivities and then hosted the postgame festivities when she gave the Lombardi Trophy to the head coach of the Seahawks, Mike Macdonald. Now, this Maria Taylor's got a story in and of herself. She went to the University of Georgia. She was a volleyball player. She was all world. She studied broadcasting, and after her playing days were over in college, she went on to work for ESPN and worked her way up, and ultimately she's at the pinnacle, right, where you're standing on the podium at the Super Bowl, handing the Lombardi trophy to the owner and the coach of the winning team, right? Well, here's the best part of this story. Maria Taylor, the host, and Mike McDonald, the coach, went to the same high school. They were high school buddies. She was the star athlete. He was the quarterback. They didn't date or anything, not that I know of, but they were friendly. She was much more. She was like the all-world athlete of the year. He was just a regular sort of linebacker. But they were friends in high school. And then years later, they grow up. She becomes standing on the podium, handing the Lombardi trophy to her high school buddy who goes on to win as head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. I love that story. That's a great story. Everybody wants to yell and scream about Bad Bunny and everything else. That's America. Right there, that Maria Taylor and Mike McDonald ending up going to the same high school and then being on the Super Bowl podium. That's what America's all about. This is America at Night. Stay right there. Marc Racicot is going to join us. He is the former governor of Montana. We're going to talk politics this first hour. His thoughts as he wrote a op-ed in The Hill about NATO and Greenland and all that. We'll get to him about all the news of the day. Next hour, we've got a great story of a 14-year-old sportscaster. You're going to stick around for this one. That's great. And then, of course, open phones in hour number 3. America at Night. Back in a moment.
Live from coast to coast, this is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. This is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Hey, welcome back. It's nice to talk to the former governor of Montana, two-term former governor of Montana. He was also the head of the RNC. He was also a big supporter of George W. Bush and helped in their re-election campaign. Also chaired the Republican National Committee. And he is now part of a group called Our Republican Legacy. Former Montana Governor Marc Racicot. Governor, welcome to America at Night.
Well, thank you very kindly. It's a privilege.
We're going to talk about the current events, and one of the things that is most interesting is you wrote an op-ed piece in The Hill about President Trump's obsession with Greenland. It's sort of died down now with some of the things going on in Minnesota, but I'm sure it's going to rear its ugly head again. And so this op-ed piece talked a lot about NATO and our support with NATO. And it seems like a lot of people missed that day in class where they talked about the importance of NATO. Take a moment and give us a brief little history about how we got here and why NATO is so vital to our own national interests.
Well, it all begins, of course, with the Second World War, McGraw. As you know, we were in a circumstance afterward where there were efforts on behalf of the Allies and those democracy-seeking countries to bond together to be able to, first of all, spread democracy around the planet and to do as much as possible to create the kind of alliance that they could rely upon so that we never experienced exactly the same dynamics that we did on the European continent during World War II. So in 1948, the proposal was made, and ultimately, I think in the beginning there were 14 countries that joined NATO, and then henceforth, through all these years, it has expanded over the course of time, and there are now, in my memory, 32 different countries that are a part of the NATO alliance, and it is a defense alliance that engages in everything that has to do with the quality and capacity for human beings to live in freedom. It's a defense alliance primarily, and its foremost function. I was stationed in Germany when I was in the Army, and there were massive training sessions that took place between the various different countries. It's been the most effective and the most respected defense alliance in the history of humankind. And it is now almost 77 years old. And it has functioned precisely as they hoped it would in the beginning. It was supported overwhelmingly by members of Congress, by members of the Senate, when it was passed and accepted by the United States. Both Democrat and Republican. So it has a very proud and very long history. And as a consequence, we arrived, of course, to the days of Donald Trump, who has very little regard, if any at all, for the NATO alliance. In fact, I think he's referred to it as a paper tiger and incapable of responding in the way that he has expectations for them to respond, which is a sad tragedy because it has created all kinds of dysfunction and disillusionment on the European continent about the capacity for the United States of America to be a good partner in their efforts to preserve democracy around the globe.
It is interesting that in the 20th century, there were two world wars in Europe, and since NATO has been created, there hasn't been any. And you talked about, right, the greatest defense alliance of all time, so powerful that Russia has spent 70 years trying to break it because it has been so powerful. Is that not true?
That is absolutely true. As a matter of fact, many of the countries now, presently, in the alliance, in NATO, originally in Middle European countries, were a part of the Soviet umbrella. And over the course of time, they have changed what it is that they see as their objectives and their imperatives to live as a free and thoughtful people. And of course, have been concerned about having the defense mechanism in place that protects their ability to survive. The very real indication of how things can turn sour probably is revealed in Ukraine, where the tragedy and the slaughter of Ukrainians by the Russian army have been matters of great international disdain and concern. And so that shows you what can happen very rapidly whenever a country outside the NATO umbrella is attacked for reasons that are to serve their own interests and their own imperatives to expand and become a larger country than what they already are.
So what you're saying is there's a reason why Russian troops are in Ukraine and Russian troops aren't in Poland.
That's exactly correct. That is a precisely correct estimation.
Yeah. Let's talk about Article 5, because Article 5 is pretty radical back in the 1940s when it was signed, right? An attack against one is attack against all. And some people were probably critical, like, oh, okay, wait a minute. If Russia goes into Poland again, we're going to have to defend Poland. I mean, Russia's really not going to invade America, so we're going to be the world's policeman in a sense. And in fact, Article 5 has only been used once. When was Article 5 used?
My memory is in the United States of America with 9/11.
Yeah, after America was attacked, the NATO countries came to the defense of the United States, did they not?
That's exactly correct.
Yeah. Which I can't imagine when our founding fathers back in the 40s and 50s signed the NATO agreement, they ever thought that, right? They always thought the other. They always thought America would come to the defense of Europe, not that Europe would come to the defense of America.
Absolutely true. And, there's a certain amount of common sense. It's a bit, I suspect, in the minds of some self-focused. But the fact of the matter is the United States has realized that the more that you can spread democracy around the world in other places and locations, obviously the safer the American people are over the long run. And a 77-year period of time proving that particular theorem seems to me to be overwhelming proof that NATO is much, much more than a paper tiger, as Donald Trump has called it. And it's actually also suggests, when you take a look at what it is that he's talked about doing with another NATO country, namely Greenland, how preposterous his judgment is and how twisted and gnarled it is, because he would, in essence, if he saved himself the opportunity to enter with force as he did in the beginning, would have been attacking a NATO country. And as a consequence, that union of countries would have been duty bound because an attack against one is an attack against all. So it was so ludicrous and out of the mainstream thinking that it was hard to imagine that the alleged leader of the entire planet, at least in the freedom-seeking nations, would come up with such an unbelievable scheme. But he did that once before when he wanted Greenland, and that was his theory was just trade Puerto Rico for Greenland. Of course, forgetting that there are 3 million American citizens that live in Puerto Rico. And his reason for doing so was that Puerto Rico was dirty and poor, and he wanted what it was that he could secure in terms of value and precious minerals in the Greenland island. So, I mean, this is just insanity, McGraw, that he gets engaged with almost on a daily basis.
Former Montana Governor Marc Racicot, our guest. We're going to come back and talk more with him about this and about the current events, obviously Greenland and NATO being top of mind. Marc Racicot, former Montana governor. Real quick, I got about a minute or so left before I have to break for the bottom of the hour. But Greenland obviously is a strategic part of the world. It is part of NATO with Denmark, so much so that Harry Truman at one point tried to buy it, did he not?
He did. He tried to buy it with gold bullion, but the offer was declined. And frankly, McGraw, at the end of the day, quickly, I'll say, you have already an agreement in place. We already have troops in Greenland, and we have an agreement in place to expand and enlarge pursuant to negotiated agreements, if in case that's the need and the necessity at the time. So this is totally preposterous that you have to have an armed force invade in order to secure the benefits to the security of the free, loving peoples of the world.
Marc Racicot, hold that thought. We're just getting started. Former Montana governor, RNC chairman, two-time governor of Montana. He was also the attorney general, a prominent figure in the W. Bush administration. He also chaired the Republican National Committee, and he's affiliated now with an organization called Our Republican Legacy, which is Republicans getting together to talk about the future of their Republican Party. Marc Racicot. Hey, the text line's open. 1-844-262-4729. 1-844-262-4729. We're just getting started. Stay right there. America at Night. Back in a moment.
You're listening to America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. This is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Marc Racicot is our guest, former governor of Montana. And I have never been, but I've seen pictures. Governor, it is a beautiful state, is it not?
It is, sir, and you shouldn't miss it. You better get here quickly.
All right, fair enough. Let's talk about NATO. You wrote an op-ed piece in The Hill about the charter, the UN charter, NATO treaties, and the like in reference to Greenland, and we have a chance to talk to you about it. Talk for a moment, because Donald Trump has been very critical of NATO, but one that seems to be legitimate is that the NATO members are not keeping up their end of the bargain when it comes to military spending. Are they not woefully neglect in keeping up their part of the bargain when it comes to spending on national defense?
Well, I think it's unquestionably true that it's been less than the United States of America. Of course, you have to remember, on a percentage basis of your economy is how the judgment is made, a certain percentage of gross domestic product. And as a consequence of that, you're always going to have a nation as prosperous as the United States who is contributing on a dollar for dollar basis more than the other nations around the world. But they have taken that critique, I think, very seriously and have substantially increased their contributions to NATO. So there's progress being made to bring about equality among nations on not only as close as you can on a percentage basis, but it's not going to get to the same level because of the variety of different levels of economy in all these various countries that can compare to the United States.
Yeah. Last question about NATO, because I think it's a lot of other things I want to get to here, and that is going forward. It is the law of the land, is it not? Right? We passed the treaty. It was passed by the Senate. It was signed by the president. It is the law of the land. And so President Trump doesn't have a choice whether or not to follow NATO, right? It is the law of the land.
Well, it's not only the law of the land, the Constitution itself says that once approved by the Senate, that it will become the supreme law of the land. And secondly, in that same constitutional provision, it is required that the President of the United States, quote, take care, unquote, to make certain that its provisions are enforced. So that has apparently received very little regard from the president presently serving in office. He ignores the Constitution in a variety of different ways and times, as we've seen constantly unfold in front of our eyes.
Yeah. Where does the Republican Party go from here, former Montana Governor Marc Racicot?
Well, I think that although I've been rebuked for my thoughts and my suggestions, I came out against Donald Trump in 2016. There was a kind of a crossing of the Rubicon for me in that year because he appeared to me to be totally incapable as a matter of character and values to serve in that office. And that has been my judgment then. It is now. So I haven't always operated with a unanimity of consent from my former Republican friends. I think where it comes about is that there is substantial appetite that we have discovered, those of us who have joined a group called the Our Republican Legacy, to focus upon unity, adherence to the Constitution and the rule of law, fiscal responsibility and free enterprise, and peace through strength. So we have been working over the course of the last numerous months under the direction and suggestion of Senator John Danforth primarily, and we have been focused upon bringing back the opportunity for those who believe in a different kind of Republican Party than the one that presently exists into existence. So that's been the focus of a lot of time and attention for a lot of us across the country. But naturally, even though we may not have thought about it ahead of time, you're going to get involved in present day politics when you're involved, even in trying to reconstruct a party.
Where did the Reagan Bush wing of the party go wrong? They must have done something wrong to allow the Trump wing of the party to flourish, or did they?
Well, I think it's very difficult for me to dissect that and to come up with a totally uniform and logical decision. I think that we slept somewhat for a while. In addition, there have been a lot of developments that have influenced this process, in my view. At the end of the day, you have a different economy with wealth differences that are extraordinarily different than they were just a few years ago. You have the internet, which has all of these miracles of possibility, but at the same time is full of grievance, anger, resentment, and the opportunity to say things and do things that one would never do in the presence of other human beings. That has made our communications edgy and angry. You have an orchestrator here, somebody who is so deeply involved in treachery and lies and spreading vengeance across the country that it takes root and it appeals to that small side of the nature of human beings. And as a consequence, over time, it makes things even more challenging and difficult for human beings in a consensual arrangement. And that's what our democracy is a consensual arrangement where we consent to respect each other. Those things have fallen apart. The glue that has held us together over all of these 237 years since the Constitution passed was that they have been eroded and corroded. And you have a person serving in a leadership position now, namely Donald Trump, who desecrates any conventions, any rules, any regulations, any court orders, any constitutional provisions that he chooses. That breeds a great deal of discontent, and I think places the United States in a position that's existential. We're really confronting the opportunity here for us to fall apart if we don't regain our bearings and focus upon what it is that has made this a flourishing democracy, the longest in human history.
Is it Donald Trump's party, or is it the ideas of Donald Trump? Because it's sort of a party of one, right? And everybody follows Donald Trump, whatever he says. He doesn't, there is no platform. There is no sort of set of guidelines and rules and or philosophies. It's just whatever Donald Trump says at any given time.
Well, that's precisely correct. At the end of the day, I think what happens is that we tend to believe in each other. We tend to provide each other a presumption of innocence. We tend to also have some small sides to our nature, appealing to our grievance and our vengeance and our biases. And I think the only thing he's done well is appeal to those grievances and to try and convince about 35 or 40% of the people that they can have it better if they follow in his path. And then he achieved enough critical mass in order to, I think, bring some fear and trepidation within other elected offices and other Republican office holders to adhere to his sanctimonious program of destruction, that we end up in a situation where it's a spiraling impact. I do think, however, you're seeing some changes, significant changes, where the screw is turning slightly. We have realized we've made some tremendously bad choices in terms of vesting our confidence. And at the end of the day, I think you're seeing it even in Congress with some movement in the elections that have taken place, in the demonstrative voting on these new alignment of congressional seats that have been undertaken in California, Texas, and other places. So the discontent, I think, is manifesting itself more every day. My fear is, McGraw, that we end up experiencing extraordinary tragedy and pain before we come to the conclusion that we made a horrible mistake ever electing Donald Trump in the first place.
Let's talk about free trade, because one of the tenets of the Reagan Revolution, if you will, in the last 20 years before President Trump was free trade, and that march towards NAFTA and free trade, and that was going to solve the world. And free trade did a lot of good, but it did a lot of damage along the way. Where do we go after President Trump in terms of free trade? Is there room for tariffs? Is there room for more free trade? What are your thoughts?
I do think there's room for free trade, but this totally unpredictable process of assigning tariffs, changing the percentages, moving tariffs in, moving tariffs out, all of which ultimately transfer costs and burdens upon consumers, is not only a problem with how he has administered them, not as a result of negotiation, and nothing is ever going to be perfect in terms of trying to bring a leaven economy to the United States of America. But at the same time, we reach substantial, I think, equilibrium as we have negotiated treaties. It's not as efficient. It certainly takes some time. It takes some effort, but we're a global economy. There's no way to escape that. And I do think if Congress would exert its authority and get involved in the setting of tariffs, and that's really what the Constitution provides, we would be in a lot better situation than somebody who changes one tariff tonight and another tomorrow and threatens with a third. And it's so unpredictable. The last thing that an economy wants to depend upon is unpredictability. Trump creates nothing but unpredictability, and as a consequence, I think, has disrupted the entire world economy that is going to take a very long period of time to restore once we get back to a situation where we negotiate and carry on good faith discussions.
Part of the conversation in the last couple of years has been bringing back manufacturing. And a lot of people have said, look, that ship has sailed. Manufacturing in the 21st century is very different than manufacturing in the 20th century. And while I think we would all agree that manufacturing is important, doesn't it look very different today than it did even 20 years ago?
It certainly does. I think that there are surely opportunities for us to create goods and services that arise in and emanate from the United States of America. So there are still ingenuity and capacity and creativity, but it has changed so drastically from the economy that you and I knew growing up, that we have to adapt and adjust. And there are certainly heavy industries that still call for our specialized labor force. There are construction efforts that still rely upon those who are skilled in those various different vocations. So we don't give up entirely, clearly, but trying to somehow think that you can, by imposing tariffs, create home base for every economy in the world, being the United States of America, is sheer nonsense.
What do you think of the immigration debate going forward in this country?
I think it's incredibly tragic. And if there's one telltale sign about what it is that a demise of a democracy could look like, it was has been evinced in California, Portland, and in Minneapolis, on the streets of Minneapolis, and the unmistakably accelerating amount of violence, the denial of civil rights, the casual infliction of pain and suffering, the grotesque brutalities that they've inflicted upon citizens, the lack of judicial process. This is reminiscent of 1930s Germany, where they had those special troops marching throughout the streets, clothed in uniforms and masks. This is not the United States of America. And if we don't reassert ourselves as good citizens and Congress doesn't wake up and do something worthy of being considered an elected official serving the public good, the demise of America is a question that's on the plate for discussion.
Marc Racicot, the former head of the Republican National Committee, also former Republican Montana governor, a two-term governor. Governor, did you ever see your name? Would you ever put your name back on a ballot? Would you ever run for office again?
Well, I'm a really old guy, McGraw. I'm in my upper 70s, so I think probably best advised to stay focused upon the things I am. I haven't really ever thought about that, no. But I can't quite seem to just give up on the country and let things unfold as they will.
Marc Racicot has been our guest. He's part of our Republican legacy, part of the old Republican guard who is out talking about the issues of the day. Governor Marc Racicot, thank you very much for your time. Good luck down the road, and we hope to chat with you sometime in the future.
Great pleasure. It's a great privilege, and I'll see you in Montana soon, I hope.
All right. Yeah, there you go. I'll call you. I'll let you know. There you go.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right. Yeah, do a little fly fishing up in Montana. That never hurt anybody. That's good for the soul, a little fly fishing up in Montana. It's America at Night. Back in a moment.
From the heart of America, this is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Coming to you from the heart of the nation, this is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
All right, stay right there. Next hour, we're going to talk to a sportscaster, a 14-year-old sportscaster who could probably have my job tomorrow if he wanted it. That's how good he is. We'll check in with him. Also, there's a true crime story that's getting a lot of attention. The hunt for a zombie killer. It's an unbelievable story. Who done it? And so we'll get into that next hour. And then, of course, open phones. This fight with America continues on, and this controversy over Bad Bunny on the weekend on the Super Bowl halftime show I find somewhat comical. But Jake Paul and Logan Paul, the boxers, the MAGA boxers, the Trump-loving boxers, they disagree on Bad Bunny. Listen to this. Jake, got him confused. Jake called Bad Bunny a fake American citizen. I don't know how you'd call somebody from Puerto Rico a fake American citizen. If you're born in Puerto Rico, you're an American citizen. But his brother Logan shot back and said, "I love my brother, but I don't agree with this. Puerto Ricans are Americans, and I'm happy they were given the opportunity to showcase their talents that comes from the island." So Logan and Jake Paul are getting into it and disagreeing over the Bad Bunny weekend show. I got in this conversation with somebody earlier today that Puerto Ricans are not allowed to vote for president of the United States. That's factually inaccurate. It's not my opinion, but it's factually inaccurate. Puerto Rico is a territory of the United States. They have a representative in Washington, and they also have a primary. However, they do not have a seat in the Electoral College, okay? So they do not send electors to Washington, D.C. to vote for the Electoral College. So therefore, if you're on the island of Puerto Rico, you cannot, you can't vote for president. However, they are American citizens, and they come with all of the rights and benefits of being an American citizen, including moving to America. They don't need any type of papers or anything. They can freely move to anywhere in the United States of America. And once they're in America, if they choose to live in Florida or Vermont or California or Idaho or Texas, you name it, they can register to vote, and they can vote in their district. Just like if somebody's born in New York and moves to Kansas, they can then vote in Kansas. If somebody was born in Puerto Rico and moves to Kansas, they can vote in the presidential election in Kansas. They're Americans. I don't know what the argument is over fake American citizens. They're American citizens. That's not my opinion. That's just a fact. I don't understand what the big controversy is. It seems like we got nothing else to do but argue with each other over things that we're arguing over whether or not it's Monday or not. It's not Monday. Yes, it is. No, it's not. That's your opinion. No, it's a fact. It's Monday. Holy mackerel. Stay right there. We're just getting started. Our executive director tonight is Alex Hinton. Our engineer tonight is Richard Good. I'm McGraw Milhaven, and this is America at Night on Westwood One.
Westwood One presents America at Night. Here's your host, McGraw Milhaven.
All right, this next story hits close to home because I got family and relatives and spent some time living in Scottsdale, Arizona, and know the Paradise Mall quite well. And if you are a fan of true crime, well, this is a book for you. The book is called Chasing Down the Zombie Hunter, the true story of a small-town accountant and an elite group of detectives in Arizona's most terrifying cold case. The detective who helped open up the cold case and finally find its conclusion, Troy Hillman, the author of the book Chasing Down the Zombie Hunter, joins us on America at Night. Detective, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, McGraw. I appreciate it.
You got it. Simon & Schuster, by the way, the publisher of the book. Set the scene for us. Take us back to 1992. What happened?
We have a very young, athletic, soon-to-be 22-year-old. It was actually the night before her birthday, goes out for a bike ride at dusk, and she is found the next day savagely murdered to the point where her head was missing and her body was almost cut in half. So it was a very gruesome crime scene. And then 10 days later is when her head was found in a canal about 2 miles south.
And that's when this story goes, Chasing Down the Zombie Hunter. Wasn't there another victim as well?
Yes. About 10 months later, a 17-year-old junior in high school it was called Arcadia High School. She went bike riding at dusk, kind of in a northwest pattern towards what we know as Metro Center Mall. and she was found floating in the canal the next day. Similar set of circumstances.
And how did you come to learn about this case, and how were you assigned to it?
I took over the cold case homicide squad in 2008 as the sergeant, and it was pretty dysfunctional. I had two detectives trying to manage over 2,500 cold cases, so we were kind of getting up and running, and I was trying to run it like a CPA based on my background, and we basically had a media records request that asked for this case in its entirety, and so I decided that I needed to kind of pour through it and make sure that we didn't give out everything, because in case we did solve it, we wanted to make sure that we knew some things that the bad guy didn't know. So that's when the shock and awe from my standpoint was like, what happened on the front end from 92? Why did we miss something? Because you don't start off doing the kind of horrific things that he did and then just stop after the second victim in 93. There was nothing. It was just like two horrific murders, the worst that Arizona had ever seen, and then he was just gone.
When you took over in 2022, there were 2,500 cold cases? That seems an extraordinary number.
Yeah, that was actually in 2008. And then they've kind of unfortunately been growing as much as we try to put a dent in it. There's probably over 3,000, and that's just literally in Phoenix alone. That's not the suburbs like Scottsdale and Gilbert and Chandler, those areas.
I would think that these murders were so horrific, and the outcry would be so much that they would put extra manpower on it. They would do something extra to sort of track this down. How cold of a case, or was it just somebody missed something, or was there really nothing there at the time in 1992?
Well, in 92 and 93, that was kind of before DNA. DNA really didn't start to get rocking and rolling until the mid-90s. They were able to compare the two cases and say definitively the same bad guy killed them. And then they put it in the national DNA database with the FBI, the CODIS it's called. They did that in 1999, and there were no hits. And so, unfortunately, detectives with getting more and more cases, there was a lot of attention on these cases. Thousands of names were vetted out and looked into leads, but nothing ever came of it. So the prevailing opinion was he's dead, and kind of the opinion for our cold case squad was, hey, he's dead, don't waste your time.
And so you took over this cold case in 2008. You didn't come up to any real information until what, the mid-2000 teens?
Well, yeah, so I took over the cold case squad in 2008. We didn't actually start looking at this case until 2011, and then we spent about 3.5 years on it. It was a 3.5-year journey, roller coaster ride.
And the book is called Chasing Down the Zombie Hunter. The story goes is that the ultimate killer was living his life hiding in broad daylight, was he not?
Yeah, he was. In fact, he was a huge steampunk and Comic-Con. He was basically driving around a police car that he bought at an auction and kind of tricked out, and had Zombie Hunter across the back, and basically a bloody mannequin in the back. And he was kind of a local celebrity, and people knew him as the Zombie Hunter.
What's a steampunk? What is that? What's a steampunk?
Steampunk was it's basically a group of people that like to go back to the industrial age, and so they'll have huge clocks around their necks, or it's kind of that turn of the century where industrialization started to happen, but they'll basically dress up accordingly. So he had a big a Gatling gun he carried, and kind of had this Zombie Hunter look about him.
Why did you want to write the book?
After we solved it, the leadership at the time decided to dismantle the cold case squad, and that didn't sit well with me, because I felt like these cases were the poster child of why cold cases matter, and why we needed to devote really passionate, hardworking detectives on looking at these cold cases.
Yeah, I would think. I find that surprising that they would turn it down, right? Because these are the cases that stay with detectives for years, right? These are the ones they take to their grave, is it not?
Yeah, these we know the original detectives, and they were haunted by these cases, and but there's just not. They didn't have what we had, which was DNA advances in technology and genealogy and all that good stuff. So yeah, they're unfortunately though all it takes is one kind of short-sighted, leader that decides, hey, it's not important. And to me, it's extremely important, because not only the victims and families are waiting for justice, but you've got a bad guy out there that committed murder, and he's free. So.
Yeah. Was it as simple as just tracking down his DNA and then running a DNA scan, or was there more? More involved?
Yeah, kind of the book is our this, like I said, this 3.5-year journey where we sifted through the original reports. We flew all over the country, and we're excited about these different leads, only to be told it's not him. And then basically we went back to Philadelphia, and we talked to a group called the VDOC Society, which are, I don't know if you've heard of them. They're very talented, brilliant people that kind of like a think tank for helping solve murders. And then one of the things they said, the nuggets was, this type of killer is a Bundy or Dahmer, and he's going to be somewhere in your files. And we said, well, our files are massive. We've got him in the basement. We've got him in a homicide room. We've got him strewn about the homicide area. And it's going to take us years to get through them. And lo and behold, we got a call in 2014 from a forensic genealogist. And this is 2014. This is 4 years prior to where they used it on the Golden State Killer. And we'd never heard of it being used in law enforcement. And we ended up going through struggles to try to get, because sometimes government is not exactly nimble and forward thinking. So to try to prove to the leaders that we needed to use this technology was grueling. But we eventually convinced them to do it. And she gave us a surname out of his DNA, which was groundbreaking. And she gave us, and then we opened up the files, and sure enough, he was in the files.
Wow. I can't. Troy Hillman, our guest. The book is called "Chasing Down the Zombie Hunter: The True Story of a Small Town Accountant." That's you, and an elite group of detectives in Arizona's most terrifying cold case. We should say that ultimately he was found. He's in jail. And I can't help but ask you, Detective, about the Tucson Savannah Guthrie case. Missing, abducted, seems to be without a trace. As you watch this, I don't know if you have any inside information, but what are your thoughts as you watch this new story unfold?
Yeah, I don't have any inside information, but I do know that the law enforcement is probably rightfully so holding back some information so that they can they're putting out everything is bad business for law enforcement, because basically there's going to be bad actors, there's going to be people inserting themselves in the investigation and doing who knows what, and that's going to be a draw on resources. So my guess is they know, again, a lot more than what they're saying, and I think there's all these tentacles to that investigation. There's people, I describe it as a beehive of activity, where people are taking leads and they're vetting them. People are looking at the cell phones. People are looking at any kind of emails. They're looking at surveillance, they're all in the ransom notes and the validity of those. There's just a ton of activity going on, and I'm just personally, I'm praying that she's alive and she's okay and gets back to her family.
One of the interesting things about the ransom note is, right, the ransom note, they're having a hard time. They're either telling us they don't know, or they really don't know if it's a legitimate, which is certainly understandable. But it makes sense, right? If somebody has figured out a way to write a ransom note, they don't want to be detected. They don't want to be known. So if they're doing this through through some type of masked internet image or some mass internet sort of profile, how would the police determine if it is real or if it isn't real?
Well, at some point before that individual, if they're going to have to prove that she's still alive, and then get around all the, what do they call them, the deep fakes, or basically the AI generated images. So they're going to have to prove beyond a doubt that to the FBI and the authorities that she's still alive, and also prove that they are legit and that they know things that only the abductor would know. So that's, I think, and that those ransom note could be chocked full of a lot more details than what they're putting out. Or there could be separate ransom notes that were, we only have the ones that I think were sent to TMZ and maybe a local Tucson affiliate, but there may be other things. It's so hard to say because there's so much information out there, and it's not all been verified.
Yeah, it's really one that is a head scratcher as the world waits and watches. Troy Hillman, our guest. Chasing Down the Zombie Hunter is the book. Simon & Schuster. Last question about the two girls who were killed. Did the killer know the women, know the girls? Did he just come across them? Why did he choose those two?
Well, he seemed to have an infatuation with bicycles. And I think they were what the FBI at the time described as random blitz style attacks. So they met his fantasy, I guess, and he decided to act on it. And basically, he brought his kit, I guess, of sorts, and his knife, and he ended up stabbing both girls in the back. And I always say about the only good thing that came out of these murders was that the girls did not suffer, that they were basically, killed instantaneously because he did savage acts, after that. So,
yeah, heartbreaking. Did you find any other murders associated with him?
Yeah, well, there was one he confessed to his ex-wife that lined up to a disabled 13-year-old girl that's been missing in Phoenix, and it perfectly lined up. Unfortunately, since we never located her body, the county attorney they really can't file on it. So that's kind of a heartbreaking story. There's several other murders that we've pretty much isolated him, but they're hard to prove. Either there was a decomposed body or there was problematic. But I know based on what he's done and based on what the FBI said in their profile, they said killer would not stop. So my guess is he's good for many more, and who knows if he'll ever talk. Hopefully he will.
Yeah. That profiling is a real deal. Troy Hillman is the detective who chased down the zombie hunter, and that is the name of his book, Chasing Down the Zombie Hunter. It's out now. Simon & Schuster is the publisher. Troy Hillman, thank you for telling your story. Congratulations, and thanks for the hard work.
Yeah, thanks, McGraw. I appreciate you having me on.
You got it. Stay right there. America at Night. Back in a moment.
America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. This is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
All right, stay right there. We're going to talk to a sportscaster, not your normal sportcaster. He's 14 years old, and wait till you get a load of this guy. You're going to fall in love with him, and he has certainly got a future. That's straight ahead. And then, of course, we will talk open phones next hour. One note on this Savannah Guthrie story: they had a 5 p.m. Arizona deadline that has come and gone, and no word, no clue, no information, no nothing about this apparent artificial deadline that was set for 5 p.m. I know at some point this morning, Savannah Guthrie said that we'll pay the $6 million ransom. There was a 5 p.m. deadline. That's passed. No word if they paid the $6 million in Bitcoin, which is untraceable, which gets people mad every time I say that Bitcoin transactions are untraceable. Yes, the transaction in and of itself is traceable, but the person picking it up is very untraceable. So they could create an account in which, XJ5967 is your account, and they won't know who that is. That's why Bitcoin is the preferred platform for drug dealers and terrorists and sex predators and sex trade and everything else, right? That's why they use Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency, is because it is non-traceable. And if you send $6 million to the person who kidnapped Savannah Guthrie's mother, it's non-traceable. The transaction's traceable, but who picks it up is not traceable. That's why they want to send it in Bitcoin. So no word yet on if it was sent, no word on the latest. So this nightmare scenario continues on. We'll talk more about this in the third hour. Take some phone calls. I have some other comments on all of this. So stay right there. America at Night. Back in a moment.
You're listening to America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Welcome to America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Welcome back, everybody. McGraw Milhaven here on America at Night. And who watched the Super Bowl last night? Everyone's got their take on it, but our insider has got the best take of all. Of course, I'm talking about Chase Colburn. He is from Chase's Sports News, and maybe you've heard of him, maybe you haven't. Well, you definitely will sometime in the near future. Chase is a 14-year-old freshman. Chase, you live in Baltimore, is that right?
Well, I'm a Baltimore fan. My dad grew up there, but I actually live in Connecticut, Fairfield, Connecticut, to be exact.
All right. Chase Colburn with us. And we are, first of all, how was school today? Everything go off without a hitch today?
It was all good. Had study hall today, so it was a pretty easy day, all things considered. But yeah, just certainly have that Super Bowl hangover from staying up late last night, but we'll figure it out.
Good for you, Chase. All right, let's get right to it. We'll talk about your career in a bit. But Seattle wins. They win. They cover the spread. Let's talk about their defense, because I think it's safe to say their defense won the game for them, don't you think?
Oh, 100%. This was not a game where I know Kenneth Walker won the Super Bowl MVP award because I think it was 135, 150 scrimmage yards in total. He was obviously marvelous on the ground, but this was a defensive game. The Seahawks scored 17 points off of Drake May turnovers. And that was really the key is, Drake May was one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL this season and really matched up well with Seattle, given that Seattle plays a lot of zone. Drake May attacks zone really well, but the Seahawks were really able to find some weaknesses in the interior and frankly, even off the edge of the New England offensive line. And yeah, they were just dominant throughout the game. Leonard Williams was outstanding. Nick Amandawari made plays all over the field. So did Kobe Bryant, the Seattle Seahawks, Kobe Bryant in the defensive back room, and so many others. Obviously, Devin Witherspoon is one of the best in the game. It was a defensive showdown. There were 0 points or 0 touchdowns, I should say, by halftime. So it really was the Seattle defense. And look, throughout the season, in the regular season, they had the #1 defensive DVOA, which is a stat that measures kind of the efficiency and how much better you are as a defense compared to league average. They were #1 in the NFL in defensive DVOA. They had some issues against the Los Angeles Rams in the NFC Championship, but they really went back to their roots in the Super Bowl and really were able to shut down this explosive offense led by Drake May for the New England Patriots.
Chase Colburn with us for a couple of minutes talking about the big game yesterday. You live in Fairfield. I don't know if that makes you a Patriots fan or a Jets fan, but as a Jets fan myself, I'm happy to see that Sam Darnold, right? He got blown out of New York. He got kicked out of Carolina. He was with the 49ers. Then he was with the Vikings, did very well. They didn't want him. This is his 5th team, and the guy wins the Super Bowl. Regardless of what you think, you got to be happy for a guy who was told he wasn't wanted 4 different places and ends up winning the Super Bowl.
No, it's truly outstanding in terms of living in Fairfield. I'm actually a Baltimore Ravens fan because my dad did grow up in Baltimore. But it's to think that Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen or any of those other star quarterbacks from the 2018 class, the fact that they didn't get to the Super Bowl before Sam Darnold did. I mean, you mentioned it. What a story here in his fifth team, in his eighth season. And you're right, he was written off. And it was actually yesterday, it was 2,302 days ago exactly that he quote unquote saw ghosts against the New England Patriots when it was a Monday Night Football game. He played New England and he went on the sideline and he was mic'd up and he's like, I'm seeing ghosts. And that was kind of the joke around Sam Darnold being a bust. Is, oh yeah, he's seeing ghosts out there yet again. And yeah, I mean, New York really failed him. He was benched for some nobodies in Carolina, and he was really, again, just considered, yeah, he was one of those busts, one of those guys that never worked out. But it's funny how things happen in the National Football League. He wasn't even going to be the starter in Minnesota. J.J. McCarthy goes down, and the Vikings start off 2-0. They have a great record to start things off, and Darnold looked great. And then they win 14 games. And McGraw, you mentioned it. That's the craziest part is it's very rare you throw for 35 touchdowns, win 14 games, and the team's like, now we're good. You can go to another team. And so Seattle took advantage. They signed him to a really team-friendly deal of only $33 million a year. That's I think 18th among all quarterbacks in the National Football League. So they didn't have to pay him much. And while Sam Darnold wasn't the star of this team, it's certainly incredible to see him make those plays and most importantly, not make the mistakes and to see him raise the Lombardi Trophy in a spot like this.
Chase Colburn, it's insulting to mention your age because you're as good as a commentator on this as people who are making a lot of money Monday morning quarterbacking all of this stuff, or Monday morning talking about the game. So, but I have to mention your age just because it's who you are, Chase. When did you've been sports broadcasting for like 4 or 5 years now?
Yeah, I went to a broadcasting virtual camp in the pandemic during the COVID-19 in 2020. And that was kind of the start.
And you knew you wanted to be a sportscaster from the beginning? Where'd you find your love for all this?
Well, it goes back to 2018. I mentioned my dad grew up in the Baltimore area, so I'm a diehard Washington Capitals fan in the NHL. And the Capitals were able to win the Stanley Cup in 2018. It was my first year as a sports fan. I thought this is pretty easy. All your favorite teams win. That's actually not how sports works, I later found out. But nonetheless, that team really just taught me how to immerse myself into a team, how much I really love sports. That carried on to the rest of the NHL, and then to the NBA, then to the NFL, so on and so forth. And once I went to that broadcasting camp, I realized, wow, not only am I one of the biggest sports fans out there, and not only am I the sports kid, the kid who knows every stat and every player, but I can really take this to the next level. I can amplify my love by going and broadcasting games all across the country. And of course, the goal originally is, I want to talk about my favorite players, but eventually around 2023, 2024, it really turned into not only do I want to broadcast my favorite teams and talk about the best players in the league, but I really want to be great at this. I want to study the craft of broadcasting. I want to be, one of the top sportscasters in the country. And that mission over the past year and a half has led me to some great opportunities, over 100,000 followers on Instagram, reposts by ESPN, interviewing analysts and insiders, Mike Greenberg, Adam Schefter, Ian Eagle, so many others. Was featured on the Makeshift Project podcast, named all 57 NBA Finals MVPs on there. So I've been very thankful for the opportunities that I've had, but it's strung from sports, but it's certainly also been a shift to really trying to be and trying to amplify my skill set as a sportscaster.
Okay, Chase. So here's the interesting thing. Now, Judd Apatow, right? The great famous Hollywood producer, when he was a kid, he would call up famous people and try and get them to be interviewed, whether it was Mel Brooks or Jerry Seinfeld or Howard Stern. You, on the other hand, aren't calling up these famous people asking for interviews. Famous people are calling you up asking for an interview, right? You have Adam Schefter's called you up. Adam Schefter wanted to interview you. Iron Eagle wanted to interview you. That's how impressed they are. You're not tracking them down. They're tracking you down.
Yeah, it's been awesome. I had those people on my podcast, but in terms of, the Makeshift Project and ESPN reposting it, it's been, wonderful. I was on News Nation a handful of times here during the NFL playoffs and the College Football National Championship, breaking down the ins and outs. And so, it's been really an awesome experience. And I'm just, extremely thankful. Those people you mentioned, Mike, Adam, Ian, they're some of the greatest people I know. And so I give a lot of thanks to all the people who have really, quote unquote, taking a chance on me. And I'm just, looking forward to the next opportunity every single day.
Do you want to be a play-by-play guy? Do you want to be a studio host? What do you want to do going forward?
I'm keeping every door open. I mean, I've done it all, whether it's been with my school or whether it's been, simply just trying to hone in my craft and practicing in my free time. And then obviously with my podcast, being a podcast host, being an interviewer, being an analyst, obviously those are the skills that I really hone in on every single day. But I really try to keep every door open. I try to practice every single skill set. I mean, I think the dream for me would be able to be on, one of those major networks every single day, be able to be on ESPN and give my analysis and have that voice that people are coming to the day after the Super Bowl, the day after, the NBA finals. Who do they want to hear their opinion? I want to be that guy when they turn on their television at 8 a.m., 9 a.m. in the morning. I want them to be seeing my voice and hearing my voice and seeing my face and being able to share sports in that way. But I'm keeping every door open because I truly do love this industry, and it's been a pleasure to fill in each of those roles.
What do your other 14-year-old friends say? Are they buying into this? Tell me about your life outside of the sportscasting arena.
I got some close friends. It depends. Some of them think, some of them don't take you seriously. Some of them think you're just, what are you doing? Why are you going home doing sports broadcasting? Why is this your extracurricular? Why are you spending so much time editing and writing and recording? And look, some people don't understand the mission. Some people don't understand it, but at least appreciate my passion. And then some people truly do get it. And I have friends in many different facets. But yeah, I mean, I have a close, group of friends, and I'm very happy to say that. But yeah, not everyone understands the passion and the dream as much, but I even do have a few friends that have been trying to do this as well, and they're very, very good as well. So it's a lot of fun to kind of share that dream with them as well.
How are your parents handling all of this?
Oh, they love it. They are my biggest super fans. They are my biggest cheerleaders in my corner. And for me personally, they're my superheroes. They're the best people and the best parents that any kid can ask for at 14 years old. They've been very supportive. They've kept every door open. They haven't tried to steer me in a different direction. They've provided guidance when I need it. My parents are extremely happy for me. They want to put me in the best position. And, even if that is, sacrificing time or sacrificing dollars or whatever it takes, they really want to put me in the best position. And I thank them so much for what they've done. And they are 100% my superheroes and my best friends.
What type of advice have you gotten? What good advice have you gotten, and from who about this career?
So my first piece of advice came from the Washington Wizards play-by-play announcer, formerly from NBC Sports Washington, Justin Kutcher. He told me never turn down an opportunity. And I have listened to that from day one. I am yet to turn down an opportunity. Now, some opportunities you can't explore to the depth of others because there's only 24 hours in a day. You have school, you need to sleep. So your time is limited, but I've never once turned down an opportunity. I have explored every opportunity. And I think that is extremely important. And there's so many you get, but there was another one as well from one of my broadcasting camps. And I forget exactly who gave the piece of advice, but it was a professional broadcaster who said, the times where you thought you were the greatest you've ever been, and the times where you thought you were the worst you've ever been, it's probably one way or the other. In our mind, our emotions are swayed so greatly. And McGraw, I'm sure you can relate to this. I'm sure sometimes you have a radio, a night on the radio, and you're like, wow, I did fantastic. I don't think I made one mistake. You listen to it back, you realize you made a few. Same thing goes on the other end, though. Sometimes you feel like you messed up everything and you realize you weren't actually as bad as you thought. So kind of keeping that mental composure and making sure that your emotions aren't being swayed every single time you go out there. I think that's very important. And that's a piece of advice I took to heart as well.
We should mention that we tried to schedule this interview and tape this interview earlier in the day, but you couldn't because you had social studies, or what? You were busy going to school, right? That's why you couldn't tape this interview earlier in the day.
Correct. Yeah, I was busy going to school and making sure I keep up those straight A's, which you could ask my parents. You could certainly ask my grandfather. That is the number one priority even still.
All right. Are you a baseball guy, or are you strictly football, basketball, and hockey?
Not strictly football. Football is probably the sport I know best currently. Basketball, history all time, even though I wasn't able to watch the Magic Johnsons and the Michael Jordans because I wasn't alive. I can go toe to toe because I've rewatched those games and learned the history there. But I'm 100% a baseball guy as well. Diehard Baltimore Orioles fan, again, sticking with those Baltimore roots. It's been rough, but hey, Pete Alonso is coming to Baltimore. I think it's an exciting time to be an O's fan. Yeah.
All right. So let's talk baseball, because the best part of the Super Bowl being over with is now pitchers and catchers report in the next couple of days. So baseball season, there's a lockout after this year coming up. And so there's a lot of baseball's in a very interesting time, but a lot of things going on. Dodgers making some moves. You mentioned the Orioles making some moves. The Mets are making some moves. What do you think of this upcoming baseball season?
I'm looking forward to it. I'm a little bit tired of the Dodgers, to be honest with you. I think when one team wins a championship, you're like, all right, fine, they won one year. But once they win the second time and they're chasing a three-peat, there starts to be this attitude where even if you have no rivalry with them, and even if you really don't have a dog in the fight and you're in the other league and you never played them in the postseason, you just get tired of seeing the same team there. And so the fact that the Dodgers went out and got Kyle Tucker, I know baseball is a different sport than the other three of the big four, but the other three have a salary cap and it's worked fine. I don't really understand why baseball isn't implementing at least a stricter rule of a luxury tax or something along those lines. The Dodgers should not be allowed, and frankly, teams should not be allowed to spend as much money as their owner has. For me, it doesn't really help the balance in Major League Baseball, where the Mets and the Dodgers can hand out these 500, 600, 700 million dollar contracts, and the Miami Marlins and the Baltimore Orioles and the Chicago White Sox are like, where is our piece of the pie? How is it our fault that we don't have as rich an owner as Steve Cohen or some of those other guys? So I think that is probably the biggest problem in baseball, and I think you're right. It could cause a lockout and cause some problems next year.
It's interesting. Even though the Dodgers spent all that money, the Blue Jays came within, 2 strikes of winning the World Series. So even though money plays such a big part in it, the team that spends the most money doesn't always win when it comes to baseball.
100% money does not buy championships, and that's the case in the other sports as well. The teams that spend the most money and utilize the salary cap as much as they can, and in the NBA, going into the first and second apron, and really making their team tax intensive. Those are not always the teams that succeed. And it's an interesting point you brought up, because I mentioned the Mets handing out a lot of those big contracts, and they weren't able to re-sign Pete Alonso and some other guys, but Juan Soto is the highest paid player in the MLB in terms of a contract and the overall value of the deal at over $700 million. And the Mets didn't make the playoffs this year. So at some point, you need to build a great team as well. You can't just sign checks to everybody. You can ask the Yankees as well. I mean, I know they made the World Series not last year, but the year before, but they've spent, money on every single top pitcher available. And oftentimes that staff is hurt, and oftentimes that staff is not prepared and in a good spot for the postseason. So money does not buy championships, but I guess the better way of putting it is not spending money will certainly not get you a championship. So there needs to be a fine line.
That is Chase Colburn. He is 14 years old. He's a freshman in high school. We'd like to stick around and talk to you more, Chase, but you've got to study for a biology test you have later on in the week. Where can we hear your podcast, and when can we read your columns?
Yeah, so you guys can follow me on Instagram at Chases_sports_news, or if you search up Chase Colburn, ChaseCoburn, it should be able to come up. That's the same, search on my name on Twitter, on TikTok, on YouTube, Chases Sports News. You should be able to find me over there, and then you guys will be able to see some of my links to some of my other content, some of my other work. McGraw, I really appreciate you having me on, and yeah, I wish we could chop it up more as well, but I really appreciate you taking the time.
Chase Colburn, you've been a pleasure. You've been a treat. You've been an inspiration. I'm sure we'll be talking down the road. Congratulations on all your success. Keep working hard. Keep studying that biology, because I don't know why, but you have to have some knowledge of biology when it comes to sports. Chase, good luck to you. Thanks for checking in, and we'll talk down the road.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Back in a moment. America at Night.
Live from coast to coast, this is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Text line alive and well tonight on America at Night. Text your comments to 1-844-262-4729. That's 1-844-262-4729. Here you go from Flagstaff, Arizona. Your guest is a rhino. I think he was talking about Marc Racicot. Your guest is a rhino. Borders, language, and culture. I will not tune in again. How much money are you getting from the Chinese? Oh, okay. He didn't spell Chinese right. I'm getting, I believe, no money from the Chinese. Thank you very much, though. Here's one from Florida. Love your guest, Marc Racicot. Really interesting to talk to a Republican from the Republican wing of the Republican Party. All right, there's a good one. Here's another one from Missouri. MAGAs are whining about Virginia redistricting. Here's one from the 407 in Georgia. Trump said the U.S. needs Greenland for a quick response and an effective defensive Golden Dome. Isn't that true? we can enlarge our bases in Greenland. We've already have those agreements already in place. Can't get to all the text messages because the music says we are out of time. Open phones next hour. Start lining up. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. Our executive director this hour is Alex Hinton. Our engineer tonight is Richard Good. How good was that 14-year-old sportscaster, right? I'm McGraw Milhaven, and this is America at Night on Westwood One.
Westwood One presents America at Night. Here's your host, McGraw Milhaven.
Monday night here on America at Night. Thanks for tuning in. As always, it was a busy weekend. Of course, you had the Super Bowl. Seahawks beat the Patriots. The Seahawks covered, and it was the under. That was kind of interesting. A defensive struggle for most of the game. A lot of people talk commercials. I'm sorry, I watched a lot of that game with quite a bit of interest, and I for some reason I didn't go to a party. I watched it at home. The little one was running around. We had a nice little sort of family day together, and didn't really pay attention to much of the commercials. I did. The one commercial that broke through for me was the Dunkin' Donuts commercial with Ben Affleck, which I am not a Madison Avenue executive, but just a random member of the public. The joke, it was too much of the joke in a 30-second spot. They crammed too much in. I didn't quite get it. And Ben Affleck, God love him, but the guy, the head of Dunkin' Donuts has to have gone to high school with Ben Affleck, right? It's a Boston company. He's a Boston guy. There's got to be, he went to school with his mother, or his mother's neighbors making him do it. There's got to be a reason why Ben Affleck keeps going back to Dunkin' Donuts commercials. Anyway, also Bad Bunny was a huge controversy. I don't quite get the controversy. I really, honestly don't get the controversy. People are looking for something to argue about. I don't get it. I really don't get it. I think Charlie Puth, the national anthem. I love Charlie Puth. He's fantastic. Did you ever see him interviewed? What a really nice man and a great musician and really interesting guy. I thought he killed it for the Star Spangled Banner, and it was a fine game. I don't. People are looking for controversy somewhere. If you're upset over Bad Bunny in the Super Bowl, man, you got bigger problems. All right, we'll take all phone calls. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. The Olympics, Lindsey Vonn, boy, that was heartbreaking. She clipped a gate and fell and broke her leg. Right, that's about it for Lindsey Vonn. Just a heartbreaking way to end her Olympic career. But it's awful hard to say no to somebody who has that competitive spirit. So she had to prove it to herself. So you wish her the best. But the figure skating, I don't know, man. That figure skating, the skiers, the figure skating. You look at this, or how about the snowboarders? You look at them, and it's so insane what they do. It's hard to comprehend. I think what they should do is they should have like a normal person go down the mountain on a snowboard, right? To show what a normal person can do, and then have like the real Olympic. It's cartoonish what they're able to do. And there's nothing relative for us to truly understand how insane it is. When you're on the ice and you're a figure skater and you're holding your skate above your head and you're spinning around 15 times, I get dizzy just standing up. How they can do it for 15 times is just truly, truly amazing. So lots to get to this morning. I'll shut up. Text lines open, 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. Phone lines are open. Paul in Boise, you'll be first up tonight. Thanks for checking in on America at Night. Paul, thanks for checking in. What do you got?
Oh, I don't know. I struggled with the topic of kidnapping and sudden disappearance, and not a lot of clues to go by. But I've kind of come to the conclusion after 10 days of this that I hate to say it, but I don't think she's alive anymore.
Yeah, you kind of hold out hope that something's going to happen. You also got to worry about this, Paul. Thanks for the phone call. You also got to worry about this, that if it is a kidnapping, right, they're writing a playbook. There are kidnappings all over the country. Soccer stars, soccer members, soccer families, all over the country, kidnappings happen. There are companies that get broken into and they kidnap their data. Was it ABC that had a huge a data leak or a huge hacker, right? They go in and they hold your company's records hostage until you pay them, right? It's a sort of a hostage deal. It's happening in other parts of the country. If this is now happening in this country, that they can successfully go in and take a woman out of her bed in a major metropolitan city, not a trace of it, and then get paid off from Bitcoin, this should scare everybody. Either that or it's not, and she just randomly was taken in the middle of the night without a trace. So either way this goes, this is a bad scene. This isn't a one-off. This is they're bad actors here, and there's a bigger story here. It's not just, oh, we're all watching this, and poor Savannah Guthrie. There are going to be other people who are in danger because of this. So this is a bad story all the way around. Eduardo in Tampa, Florida, welcome to America at Night. Hello.
Yeah, McGraw, you got some competition. If you ever want to take the night off, Chase can fill in for you.
Wasn't that guy fantastic?
Yeah, that's awesome. And he's 4.0. I mean, because I'm not an advocate of people going to college. I'm more into the trade schools. But, I mean, that's great.
Yeah, no, he good thing he's in sports, so I feel relatively safe. But if he ever wanted to host a talk show, I think I'm out of a job. Yeah,
let me get into and this already popped up a poll in Telemundo, the Spanish thing. I'm bringing this up because of the Bad Bunny performance in Latinos, and I don't like it when they just have like one, because Latinos is I'm Mexican, Latinos is Peruvians, Colombians, all that, and I don't like how they all like zero in on one particular, subgroup of a Latino. So
sure,
that was disappointing. I'm not even a fan of Bad Bunny because I'm more into the jazz and the old Bill Withers and all that old music. But the Texas election and Karl Rove, I didn't hear too much press about this, but Karl Rove says that they're in yellow alert as far as that state possibly swinging in the near future, especially with that special election. And I saw the poll on Telemundo that the president is unfavorable with Latinos, and that's because of the obvious, what's happening with ICE.
Yeah, and so what's your point, or what's your comment, what's your question?
Well, I don't think it's a reliable vote, like because I hear like Dick Morris on his Sunday show saying, "Oh yeah, it's a reliable vote," but I don't think it's a reliable vote. I think they could swing pretty easily. They're more independent. I don't think it's a reliable like Republican constituency. So
I think there's we all know that polling is in an interesting place right now, and that if you don't like a poll, you can say polling is right. I don't believe in the poll. Now, I haven't seen the numbers on this poll and how they have conducted it, but there are billions of dollars that are spent each and every year on polling. Right, companies do polls all the time, and whether you like green M&Ms or red M&Ms, right, or you like you like you like your mattress with a 2-inch top as opposed to a 4-inch top, or who knows, whatever, right? So polling is an important part of American business. In terms of politics, you say what you want, but the last couple of elections, the national polls have been relatively accurate, right? It's they were within the margin of error, and the going back to the Hillary Trump deal, it was well within the margin of error. Now, they might have gotten some states wrong, but for the most part, they were pretty accurate. Now, I don't know what poll you're talking about, but I have seen other polls where he is losing some support in the Latino community, and I know that's a broad term. But, again, we'll just have to wait and see how it all turns out. He's underwater in a lot of different polls, right? He has taking water in a lot of different subgroups, whether it's educated, non-educated. He's still very much popular in his Republican base and his Republican Party. But independents apparently seem to be having some problems with him. But we won't know until Election Day in November how it's all going to shake out. Yeah. Eduardo, thanks for the phone call. Appreciate it. Very much. You got it.
Yeah.
Call back anytime. Mark in Oregon and Steve in New London, Connecticut. I got to take a break. Hold on. We'll get to your thoughts. I want to give you guys plenty of time. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. The text line is officially open. We can get your texts, and we love the phone calls. So hang tight. More phone calls. Open phones. America at Night. Back in a moment.
Join the conversation. Call 844-2-McGraw. America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Join the conversation. Call 844-2-McGraw. America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Let's go back to the phones. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. Keep that phone number handy. When you want to chime in, you are more than welcome. Let's go to Mark. Mark in Oregon. Hello.
McGraw, the guy from Montana, he should just become a Democrat.
Why is that?
Trump is the nominee. He won it. He even won Montana big. If you're going to be a Republican, you should support your nominee. That's it. There's nothing more to say. He lines up with the Democrats. He should just become a Democrat. And
actually, President Trump aligns a lot with very, very much of the Democratic philosophy over the years.
He does. He won. Yeah. He won. Okay.
No. But I mean, President Trump has done quite a bit to turn the Republican Party. And it has very, like the tariff policy was a very liberal idea.
I know.
It just came out tonight that the Tax Foundation, which is a very conservative sort of tax company, think tank, if you will, said that the tariffs have basically been the largest tax increase on Americans since 1993, and so. If you are part of a party in which one of your tenets is sort of low taxes and the person nominated for your party is for higher taxes, you have to agree with them. So it is whoever's nominated in the party, regardless of their beliefs. So if the Republican Party were to nominate AOC, you would have to support AOC?
If I was a Democrat and that was who won,
No. If the Republican Party were to nominate AOC, would you support her?
Well, I don't think they would. Do you really believe the Republican Party is going to know?
All right. Let me ask you this question:
Come
If the
on.
Republican Party, if the Republican Party nominated Liz Cheney, would you support her?
Yes.
Yes, you would. What about Marjorie Taylor Greene?
If she was the nominee and she won, and she was the Republican nominee, yes.
Yes.
Unless the Democratic Party completely changed. I'm a former Democrat. Unless the way it stands right now, if she won the Republican nomination, I probably wouldn't. I didn't vote for Trump in the primary. I'm a DeSantis person.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're going to be a Republican, support your nominee. He's not perfect. You're not going to agree. You can't agree with everything.
I'm not. Look, anybody can do anything that they want. I mean, you can call yourself whatever you want. But I just find it interesting that your party over policy, more or less, is a guy you are.
Whole different faction. I think Trump is 70 or 80% approval in the Republican Party.
Yeah, that's pretty low, actually. If it's 70%
or 80%.
Yeah, I think that's pretty low.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know what the average.
I mean,
is,
77. If you think Trump is supported by 70% of Republicans, I think that's really low. I don't know what it is, but if it's 70%, I think that's really low.
You'd be better. I don't know. I don't know what the average would be. My point is, you're not going to get anybody that's going. There's some things that he does that I don't agree with. There's nobody who you get in there, you're going to agree with everything. But if you're going to be a Republican, to me, he's better off just almost everything he said pretty much lined up with the Democrats. He should just become a Democrat and quit.
Well, I understand that, but a lot of what President Trump talks about is a part of the Democratic ideals. I mean, what happened to the But I mean, he's not fiscally responsible. He's not for lowering the deficit. He's not for limited government. He's has very many socialist ideas, including the government taking huge chunks of private corporations. I mean, that's no longer the tenet of the Republican Party. So I could see how a Republican like a Liz Cheney could say that's a bridge too far. And I could see somebody like you saying, hey, if that's my party today, I'm going to follow him, even though I disagree. I could see both things.
She agreed with about 95% of Trump's positions.
She did. She did, but she also voted to impeach him, too.
I know she did.
Yeah. So, hey, Mark, thanks for the phone call. Yeah. Mark, thanks for the phone call. Appreciate your comments. Love to chat it up. Steve in New London, Connecticut. Hold that thought. We're going to come back and take more phone calls. I want to be able to give you plenty of time to comments, and I'm short on the top of the hour break. Text message from the 314. A message to McGraw. I'm so happy you're doing late night. I'm so impressed with the transition you made so smoothly, inheriting the audience that existed, and your masterful expertise with walking that volatile political line. Before you came, there were slim pickings in late night broadcasting listening choices. Thank you very much from the 314. Steve in New London, Connecticut, plus more phone calls. We got a couple lines open for you right now. Stay right there. More to come. America at Night. Back in a moment.
You're listening to America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. What's on your mind? Call 844-2-McGraw and be a part of America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
From the text line, 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. Who was your first hour guest? Yeah, I apologize. The last caller was talking about our first hour guest. Our first hour guest tonight was Marc Racicot, former Republican governor of Montana, two-term Republican governor, also the head of the RNC, the Republican National Convention, and also the chairman of the Bush-Cheney re-election campaign. So Marc Racicot, a rhino, that's kind of a tough sell. I don't know what a rhino, I know what a rhino is. It means a Republican in name only. But a rhino is anybody who you disagree with, right? It's like Bad Bunny's not really an American because he speaks Spanish. No, he's an American. Born in Puerto Rico, you're an American. Just because you speak Spanish, it doesn't disqualify you from being an American. Steve in New London, Connecticut. Steve, welcome to America at Night.
Thank you very much. Good talking with McGraw. I did enjoy listening to, as you mentioned, the first caller or your first guest, Marc Racicot.
Yeah.
He was a pretty interesting guy.
Yes,
very. He certainly had his opinions on a lot of things.
He was not short of opinions. That is correct.
No, that's very correct. It's kind of refreshing sometimes, to hear a contrary opinion and have somebody that, can articulate those things. It was interesting. I had to chuckle at some of his ideas and so forth, as I'm sure many people did. I know that your last caller from Oregon was certainly not too pleased with him, and certainly ascribed him as a pretty much a liberal Democrat.
Right. I find that hard to believe. But again, just because you disagree with him doesn't mean he's not conservative, right? I mean, or whatever. I mean, we're supposed to be able to listen to all points of view and make your opinion stronger, right? I mean, if you listen to the opposite opinion, it's supposed to, question your thoughts, which is the whole idea.
Well, absolutely. And I enjoyed it. I mean, I'm a person that, I don't get offended if somebody has a contrary opinion or a different view on things. I sometimes kind of welcome it in hopes of possibly getting them to see another vantage point. It turns out a lot of people are so opinionated that you really can't accomplish that, and it becomes more or less an exercise in futility having a conversation with some people. But, I think he would have been a fun person to have at a party.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, very well respected. A veteran, an attorney general, a governor of a state, a major figure in the Bush-Cheney years. Absolutely. His opinion is interesting. Whether you agree with it or not, well, that's up to you, right? I mean, if everybody had the same opinion or everybody had the same taste, do you know how long the line would be?
Oh, it'd be extremely long, and certainly it wouldn't be very interesting either.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right, and that's the whole goal of the show, is to get a wide spectrum of guests, a wide spectrum of opinions, and ask the questions and shut up and let them answer it, and and the whole goal is to just make the show interesting.
Absolutely. It was kind of interesting that he took kind of a lower position once you had kind of put it to him, have you ever considered going for the top office? I don't think he used those words, but obviously his response was such that he felt that he was too old for even pursuing something like that, which, albeit that he's younger than Trump. I mean, it was a kind of an interesting position that he took, obviously, with all his knowledge and certainly political prowess and all the other components. It was interesting that he certainly turned that.
Yeah, I too. I thought that was an interesting response to that as well. I'm too old. I'm 70 something. I was like, oh well, you're younger than the last two people who've been in the office.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right. I chuckled at that one. I thought, well, here's a guy, obviously bright, articulate, well accomplished, and certainly knowledgeable in all the processes that you would have had to, become acquainted with, and interesting.
Yeah.
It's also refreshing. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Anything else?
Yeah, it was refreshing hearing the other young guest that you had, Chase. He's definitely going to go places, and look forward to kind of hearing more about him. And we also, I think, kind of touched on Bad Bunny, and I have some Spanish speaking friends, so of course, me being the curious person that I am, I wanted to find out what some of the lyrics actually meant, and they told me, a couple of them told me, they said, listen, I'm not even going to repeat some of the, but it was pretty bad, is what he said. And one of the guys said, and so, it's kind of curious to me, McGraw, that the FCC wouldn't step in. I mean, obviously, if you just, what my friends had quoted me, if just some of the fringe of what they quoted me was accurate, and I do believe it was pretty compelling that the FCC would probably shut you down and fine, the radio station if you were to, put that in English and air it.
Well, I suspect that if the words were offensive or whatever they were, right, if they crossed the line, give it a day or two and it will probably become a story, though it's a great point. I did not know what the words were. It's the first time I ever saw or heard Bad Bunny. I was busy, getting some more nachos and freshening up my drink and going to the bathroom. But my 5-year-old was doing a little jig in the living room. She liked the music, though she didn't understand what he was saying either. But, very, very similar to Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake, right? Nobody saw the actual offense until they were told, and then they were really offended, right? So let's wait to see what if the story comes out. But if it's translated into something nefarious, I suspect that'll be a story here in the next 24 to 48 hours.
I believe it will be. I mean, obviously, the wardrobe malfunction, and I throw that in quotes with references you mentioned to, Janet Jackson and Timberlake. That it was a planned and staged thing. I do believe, we are going to hear some, backlash on that. And, the weird thing is that here we live in a country where obviously we have to kind of wade through press 1 for English, press 2 for Spanish, and all the other components. But, the majority of the population certainly does not speak Spanish. And it was interesting that they would choose specifically, and I have friends that are Puerto Ricans, so that they would choose somebody that also just spoke, obviously with intention only in Spanish. I'm sure you can speak English to whatever degree, but it would have been nice for him to kind of insert some English lyrics in there as well.
Well, I didn't. Yeah. The only thing I understood was the billboard behind him that said, "What the only thing more powerful than hate is love." Right? That was behind the billboard with him. And I get it. I guess because it's an American tradition, people want it to be in English, but Puerto Rico is Spanish speaking, and it's he was an American citizen who's the hottest, streaming going, right? I mean, his numbers are off the charts. The kids love him, and his streaming numbers are through the roof. I know that doesn't mean anything to you or me, but the kids loved him, and so I get it. You don't get I don't get any music today, no less Bad Bunny. So I mean, if they would have put if they would have put K-pop Demon Hunters up there, I wouldn't have gotten it.
Right.
If they would have put up La Bamba, I wouldn't have gotten that either.
Right. Well, I mean, I get it. I think probably a better choice would have been somebody, even though I don't really adhere to Taylor's, her party affiliation and promoting Harris and all that sort of thing. Her music, some of which is kind of resonates, and at least you can understand most of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't. I mean, has she ever done the Super Bowl?
I don't believe she has. It was interesting that Adele, who was offered the position or that venue, she actually had turned it down, and then only to have, I believe that year, I want to say, gosh, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that
Well, it's pretty hard to call Adele more American than Bad Bunny. I mean, right? Isn't she from Great Britain?
I believe she is, certainly.
Yeah, so I mean, here you have a guy from Puerto Rico, right? Adele's more American than Bad Bunny. She's from Great Britain. He's from Puerto Rico. By definition, he's more American.
Right. Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, he is a citizen, and certainly, as you had mentioned, were he to travel to any of the states, become a resident of said state, he could certainly vote for the president at that point.
Right. Yeah. Hey, Steve, I got to go. Steve, thanks for the phone call. Appreciate the phone call. Thanks for listening, and thanks for checking in. Call back anytime. Tony in Montreal. Good evening. Welcome to America.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. Lots of good topics here. I was just looking up the controversy over Bad Bunny. You know, in Canada, we call them coniglietto cattivo, or in French, that's Italian. So coniglietto cattivo means Bad Bunny, and mauvais lapin in French, Bad Bunny. So, you know, it's kind of funny because you guys love all our great singers that come down that speak and sing only in French, and are great stars in Las Vegas and that sort of thing. And then realizing that they never spoke a word of English and then become superstars in your country singing in English. It's kind of funny that just good music is politicized. But
well, you know what? It's funny you mention that. It's funny you mention that. I learned very late in life that my father, who was not a very learned man, loved to go to the opera. And I looked at him at the very end of his life, and he mentioned something about the opera. And I was like, "You like to go to the opera?" And he said, "I love to go to the opera." And I don't know if I took a second look, or I don't know if that just made me closer to him. But when I was in Milan, actually, I listened to some opera, and I don't know a word they're saying, but it is beautiful and gorgeous. And I don't know if it's an acquired taste or something, but if you listen to a good Italian opera, it's magnificent, and I don't know a word they're saying.
Look, I'll just say this, you know, like you mentioned this in a previous show. You talked about, you know, superstar artists, and you talked about actors, right? And then Celine Dion, who came from Quebec, when she entered the United States, she couldn't speak a word of English. Mm. And then, of course, she went through, you know, I won't call it Islamification, but she went through Americanization, right? And she had to learn how to speak English, not only speak it, but sing it. And, you know, in the opera, you have people that are coming from different countries of the world, Germany, I don't know, any country, name one, and they have to sing in the operatic language, which is Italian. And they have to be able to conduct and pass the test. In other words, you have to be able to be fluent, proper pronunciation. So, you know, I didn't know very much about Bad Bunny before. And by the way, my Spanish friends in Montreal, they call it Bad Bunny, not the Bad Bunny, but Bad Bunny. So we went around in Milano Cafe for a week yelling, Bad Bunny, Bad Bunny.
I love the announcers who talk all normal, and then they talk about Patadico, right? They're talking in perfect diction, and then they say, and of course, Bad Bunny is from Patadico. Right, they have to put the accent on Puerto Rico. Everything else, perfect English diction, perfect American dialect, and then he's from Puerto Rico. It's the craziest thing in the world. Last word, Tony. You got it. Go ahead. Last word.
Okay. Anyway, I just want to say that Racicot. Okay, the way he pronounces the name, it's Racicot. It's not Roscoe. Racicot in Montreal used to be a goalie that played in the nets for the Montreal Canadiens, and they called him Red Light Racicot because he couldn't stop a puck. So, your former governor, who seems to be an intellectual and is definitely not a Trump supporter, I would call him a Red Light Racicot. Definitely, he's still wearing the red colors, but maybe letting in too many pucks and probably sitting on the bench right now. He's sitting on the bench. He's not in politics anymore. So, Red Light. You got to go back to Montana, bro.
Listen to this. Because I asked him. We asked him before the interview. How do you pronounce your name? And the way you spell it. Let me get the correct spelling here. It was
Racicot. Racicot.
Right. And we asked him, Racicot, and we asked him, and he said it's pronounced Roscoe. That's how he pronounces it, Roscoe.
Tell him the Italian boy that speaks French, English, Ukrainian up in Montreal says it's Racicot. Mon ami, c'est Racicot. Get it straight, Bad Bunny. Bad Bunny, Tony, it's Racicot.
Tony in Montreal, thank you very much for the phone call. America at Night, back in a moment.
America at Night with McGraw Milhaven, where the nation comes to talk. Happening in your world. Call 844-2-McGraw and be a part of America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Texts we got late in the show, and I'll read them for you here. This one's from somewhere in Missouri, 573. The segment with the 14-year-old sports kid was excellent. Yeah, that was really interesting. I really enjoyed that one. Bad Bunny's songs were very sexually explicit, and many words had to be bleeped out when replayed on the radio. Get the transcript. It was disgusting. I'm trying to track down the transcripts now. It sounds like this is going to be a story. It sounds like there are some people making this what the lyrics actually were. I don't have any of the lyrics with me. I'm sure we'll get them in the next, 24, 48 hours. So I don't think this Bad Bunny story is going away anytime soon. So people are going to talk about the lyrics here. That's going to be a story. I will make this comment, though. Let's remember the outrage over the Janet Jackson wardrobe malfunction. That happened on television, right? Happened on television. But who got the brunt of the criticism? Radio. It didn't even happen on radio. It was a picture. And what happened? I was working at a radio station when that happened. I was working for one of the big conglomerates. Do you know the amount of meetings we had to go to and the amount of seminars we had to sit through? Because Janet Jackson pulled the shirt off of, or Justin Timberlake pulled the shirt off of Janet Jackson. We kept saying, hey, it happened on TV. It didn't even happen on radio. Why are we getting yelled at over this? What a nightmare that was. And yes, it was all staged. Here's another one. This one's from Mississippi. Johnny P. At no time did your guest call out Biden for disregarding the Constitution. Are you sure he's a Republican? Well, he called himself a Republican. I don't think the topic wasn't Joe Biden. The topic was NATO and Greenland. That was the topic of the conversation and the plight of the Republican Party going forward. So it wasn't Joe Biden. I'm sure he had his issues with Joe Biden. I just didn't ask him. Sorry. I'll try and do better tomorrow. Let's see here. We'll leave you with this. I really don't like entertainers such as Bad Bunny. Spanish is not a universal language, so I didn't understand anything he said. Get the lyrics. I have a feeling that's going to be a story. We're done for the night. Thanks for listening. Thanks for putting up with me. We'll do it again tomorrow night. Our executive director is Alex Hinton. Our engineer tonight is Richard Good. I'm McGraw Milhaven. And this is America at Night on Westwood One. Good night, everybody.